Thank you. I have a request in the sense that I have a longer version and a shorter version. I'm going to start with the longer version. So in case I overshoot, Stefan, you always know, just cut me short. Yes. To just give you a little bit of perspective, but before I start, normally my talks I kind of dedicated to the unknown craftsmen because we are all here because of them. And especially in India, they never signed their works. You would never see a sculptor who has signed his works. So I bow down to the wisdom of the ancients. The bronze that you see there is 1,200 years old, and you can see the smile still there. And to the kings and patrons who promoted these craftsmen, and to people like you who are helping us preserve them, thank you. Yes, I called what you see of bronze, which is a very modern way of looking at it as art. How do we, as Indians, as people, see these objects? We see them not as objects of art. Literally, in my home language, we call them Tirumeni, which translates to body of God. These bronzes were ceremoniously woken up, bathed, they would be dried, they would be clothed, they would be fed, they'd go through important functions, and in the night, the Lord and his consort would be put to sleep in their own bedroom inside the temple by singing songs as well. So that's how we look at these objects. So they were not created as objects of art. They were living gods, and they continue to be living gods for us. Sadly, the Western world looks at them as pieces of art, and starting with the US, rich people started buying them, coveting them as objects of art. And this one I picked from Stefan. I know it's not very clear. This is a very famous restitution case from the Norton Simon Museum. And there you have Norton Simon on record saying, hell, I know it's smuggled, so what? And this was in the 1970s. And the same bronze, when he came back to India, and that was the ceremony which we had. But then, has opinions changed? This was an art show last year in New York, where our gods and people are posing, and to me it's defilement. And these are not objects of art that have to be traded as showpiece curios. So what's happening? Because of this demand, we people are being robbed, and sadly because of the lack of knowledge, we don't know that one of them is a fake. So the idol on the left is actually a modern replica, whereas the main two ones are the original 1,000-year-old ones. And I have numerous such examples. So the man here is one of the Lord Rama, the consort is a modern fake. Where are all the originals? Sold, publicly auctioned, adorning catalogs for millions of dollars. And what does this do? It's akin to wildlife. This bronze, it was in India, it was with a dancer, it was taken from a temple. All her identity was erased. She was put up for sale for this kind of money. It's almost $1 million. US. This kind of money can get you anything in India. And I'm not talking about singular cases. There are tons of these artifacts, and this one in fact was up for sale for almost $3 million. And I just modified my presentation for you, Stefan. You want to know where it was from? That's the looted site of the Jaina Anch. It's in Mount Abu, and you can see the modern replica being encased in cement, crudely put inside. And I'm not speculating here. I know the smuggler who offered this for sale. This is the robber offering photo. This was what he mentioned on the back of that photo when he offered it for sale. 11th century Mount Abu. And this is how the market operates, converting sacred objects. And these guys are not random looters. These auction houses paid their staff to come to India, sit with these smugglers for months together, go on recce trips, pick and choose the best of Indian art for loot, and it was looting on an industrial scale. So what we have locks. Do you think they can save $1 million? No way. Our gods are being robbed, and it's happening to this day. So that's why I started the India Pride project. We work on many aspects: restitution, awareness, being a deterrent, policy. Of course, our laws are toothless, but at least we do have some few laws. And again, we work with international law enforcement and Indian customs for capacity building. Why? Before I started, this was a headline in the year 1985. And I can go back to 1960s, I can go back to 1990s, 2000. Every decade we seem to have these big headlines, thousands of idols being stolen. There are token photo ops. The embassy would sit down, have a big get-together, nobody would get arrested. To give you in perspective, the main auditing body of the government, the CAG, put out a report in 2013. Between 1972 and 2000, India recovered 19 objects in all. Between 2000 and 2012, 0. We recovered 0 artifacts. So what do? We leverage social media. We raise awareness, we take people on heritage trips, go to schools, school kids. This is a friend's initiative in a small town where on WhatsApp, they just pick and choose a site to go every first Saturday of the month. And everybody comes with his own transport. And they invited me to one such session. And we had over 300 guys turn up. And incidentally, this is a site that dates back to 3rd century BC, which has got inscriptions that you can actually touch and read the script that I speak today. So the history has a written history of 2,300 years. And these people saw it for the first time, and there was the team that went there. I'm sure next time they find a looter, they're not going to let him loot anything. So I think engaging the public is very, very important. And then we went further. We use social media to create an archive. Over the last 10 years, I've used Facebook to create the largest distributed archive of Indian distributed objects worldwide. So you name a museum, you name a collector, name an auction house, I have the pictures. And then we invested with friends and volunteers. We bought every book published on Indian art, scanned it. We have volunteers, scholars all over the world who are collecting catalogs, purchasing catalogs, scanning it for us. Anything published on Indian art, we are putting up into our own database. People are reporting finds, because earlier they would go unreported and robbers would steal them. Today we have a Twitter handle called Bring Our Gods Home, and people report thefts live. How does this help? We are building the knowledge base. As part of the UN Convention 1972, the country need to have an archive. India didn't. We want to provide it. We want to build something and hopefully hand it over to the government. We're data mining the archive. So this is an image from a book in 1918, which was showed an idol when inside a temple. Today it's in Singapore. The only evidence was this book, published in 1918. So I will touch more on the need for archiving and use of photographs. On publishing photographs, theft photographs, I always have an argument with scholars. To me, if it's a fresh theft, I would say publish the photograph. This is a classic example. This was a temple in central India. Robbers had they took away this idol. So the trustees of the temple wrote to me and said, what do I do? I said, when did that happen? It happened last night. I said, do you have good photographs? They said, yes. I said, just put it out in every vernacular press. So the next day morning, every paper had photographs of this idol. And you wouldn't believe it, the next day, the robbers threw the idol in a nearby forest and went off because they knew it was unsellable in the international market. Because the international market is well informed and they have better scholars than us advising them, sadly. So, yes, the ruse that our guys use, this is a published photograph when this idol was still on site. They made a replica. So, what you see on the left is a replica, the right side is the original, and this was crudely stolen and they left the replica there. And we believed that this was the original for 4 years, by which time the idol was taken off to London. Peter Watson published his book Sotheby's The Inside Story, and in that he had one chapter on India. And based on that, we arrested Vaman Ghia, the largest idol smuggler at that time. In 2002, he apparently confessed to selling 10,000 items of Indian art via Sotheby's with a host of 5 Swiss companies' front ends, used to send it to Switzerland. This dealer who bought it in London got cold feet seeing his arrest, and in 2003 gave it to the Indian embassy. But the embassy didn't know what to do with it. They just kept it there, and it's still there in the Indian embassy in London. When Vaman Ghia was being acquitted by a court in 2013 for want of evidence because India did not even bring back one of whatever 10,000 he's accused of being stolen, when the evidence is right there. So what did Vaman Ghia do? So this is, in case you have not read it, I'm sure you would have read it. Just give you one example. This was a 15-ton boar form of Vishnu, one of our gods. The robbers yanked a chain around its leg, used a truck to pull it, breaking the legs off. Why the legs are not there, Stephen? And it's currently in Zurich. So when the Indian government reached out to the collector said, I have 3, which one is yours? We do not have a proper archival photo, so we've not been able to secure it for the last 16 years. That goes where we need to look at archives. Thankfully, the French Institute in Pondicherry embarked on a massive digital archival exercise in 1950s onwards. And till recently, they had these bin cards. So I used to go there, sit there, you would get thousands of these small cards, and then you need to pick for matches, and you give them, and they would go develop it and bring back from the original slides. And it's been invaluable. So this idol is from a village very near my hometown. It's a beautiful concept where Shiva, who is one of our primary gods, gives half of his body to his wife. So he's an androgyne. Half of it is male, half of it is female. And this statue is 1,050 years old only. And it had 2 hands broken. And I had researched it for my blog site. I'm not an academic, by the way, I have a day job. So I looked at it from an iconographical perspective, because when you match a male and a female side, the body tends to move to other side because the male generally is shown taller. And to balance it, the sculptor brought in the bull to balance, so you can see him leaning on the side. Now, I didn't know when I blogged about it in 2008 that robbers had taken this photo, after crudely removing from the site, sent it off to the US. From there it landed up in the Art Gallery of New South Wales, and they bought it for close to $1 million. So when I got this photograph from my good friend Jason Fells, I went to social media again, tapped my volunteer network. I said, anybody in Vrindachalam? Within an hour we had a guy on site, and there was this fake sitting there. And we reached out. It was a published photograph when it was still in situ, so we went to the UN convention. It's very good when both the countries are signatories. Australia had 30 days to refute. They had no refute. Their Prime Minister brought it and gave it back to the Indian Prime Minister. And there you see him or her on the right side. So this is where the importance of having archival photographs work. So I'm going to rush to a similar case. This was a Nataraja which was sold for $5.6 million. And again, this is the priest who's praying to an empty shrine. He was actually initially picked up by the cops They thought he was complicit in the crime and he was kept inside bars. You know how it is in India. When you go behind bars for a week, you carry scars for the rest of your life. And this guy, even after that, used to go to the temple and offer prayers to the empty shrine. Robber photo, obviously, it had a provenance that it had reached America miraculously 6 months before the UN convention, as every other artifact seems to have. Everything is left India between 1969 and 70. In Subhash Kapoor's catalogue, on display at the National Gallery of Australia, bought in 2006. And then the curator, as usual, said there are hundreds of Natarajas. You can't differentiate one from the other. So we sent one of our volunteers, we took a high-resolution photograph, went to the French Institute of Pondicherry, managed to find the photograph, we made a comparison, and so instead of giving it to Ron Radford, we put it on YouTube. So it's available even today if you go. It's called Return of the Dancer. We matched. And these bronzes are very special because they're made by the lost wax method. Each of them is individually handmade. The mold has to be broken to remove, to show the original. And we had 33 places where there were minor damages, cracks, and individual marks. No way that they could do it. It was as well returned. We took it to the temple. The villagers received it, kept it in the same spot from it was stolen. And this was how the villagers, it was a ruined temple, yes, but this was how the villagers decked up the temple to receive its Lord. These were the shipping documents, incidentally. I am in the shipping industry. It was shipped as brassware for $300 out of India. And it was an LCL shipment. It was not even a full container. And we have worse. We've got shipments coming out of India declared as garden furniture. So we had similar cases. I'm just going to run through these. This is from the Singapore Museum. Again, got returned. The Toledo Ganesha, again, we didn't even know that there was a museum in Toledo, Ohio. We went in. Subhash Kapoor had donated, he sold this object for $300,000. He donated $500,000 in cash. He donated 240 2nd century BC artifacts to the museum. I'm like, doesn't make business sense, right? You sell something for $300, then gift for $500, and then on top it up with some more gifts. Basically, this is how they ingrain into the community. They gain access into the collecting lobby. Fortunately for us, this Ganesha had a small blemish, and the French Institute photograph is so important and so good that we could actually match. But then I'll show you the photo later. The Toledo Museum, as usual, asked when we reached out to them, said, "Who the hell are you?" But they got scared. They wrote to the Indian Embassy. For 3 months, they didn't get a reply. They wrote to the Indian High Commission. For 6 months, they didn't get a reply. Finally, they gave it to US Homeland Security. And when our Prime Minister went to New York in June of 2016, this bronze also came back. And that's the small blemish that you see on the trunk. And that's how important archival photographs are. With this blemish, we could prove and bring back. We have hundreds of these cases. I'm just going to run through these. This was another case, a centrally protected site, which was on sale by Germinowers in London. We managed to get it back. It was returned 2 years ago. Again, thanks to archival photograph. This is something that we're working on. This, incidentally, is a ceiling which is in the Denver Art Museum. We have given them the proof. That's how she looked before she was looted. These are the matching work that we do. The Denver Museum asked us, go show me a photo of the empty niche, and it's 30 feet high. So right now we've got somebody who's building a ramp to go up and take photographs. They feel this evidence is not enough. So we had such cases going on forever. We've got a lot of these bronzes. This bronze was returned by the Kimball Museum in New York in 1985. But then what's shocking is in London, when they raided the gallery who sold it to the Kimball Museum, which was Emerald Art Gallery, they found 240 idols, and in the home of Chabria, they found 41 idols. They seized it, and today, it was in 1986 when they seized it, the case papers have gone missing. Nobody knows what happened to these 281 seized idols. The guy is not charged, and nobody knows what happened to these 200, including India and Scotland Yard, have no reference. And we have published papers which document this raid. Priests were flown from India. They identified the objects when they were seized. We didn't know what happened. So these are current live cases I'm going to show you. You're photographing it, videographing, go ahead. I don't worry. So this is last seen Christie's auction, March 2003. This is currently located in the Freer Sackler Museum. Christie's auction again. Current location, Cleveland, Ohio. So we're working on that. Hopefully next time I meet, I will show you with a minister holding these. They will go back. This is with the Asia Society in New York. Again, all these photographs were supplied to us through social media outreach. People wish to remain anonymous. They send us these images. They said, my grandfather told me that this photograph was missing. Go find out. And this particular photograph, they managed to find it from a photo studio that developed this photograph in the 1970s. So, yep. This idol, when it comes back, will be the most expensive restituted object. It's a $15 million yakshi, which was stolen from a farmer's home. Poor guy had documented it. It was a registered antiquity in 1978. Home-breaking theft in 2004. They stole this. It was in the market by Subhash Kapoor in 2006 for $15 million. It's currently seized. Hopefully, will come back end of this year. Main talk, 5 more minutes. So, people, my favorite hobby, you all look at Netflix, I look at art videos. So I was looking at the TEFAF videos when I had this gentleman speaking on camera, and the object that he has in his back is an artifact that was stolen from a centrally protected site in 2007. He's a dealer in London. He has refused to cooperate apparently. I don't know what it means. Here he is in his shop giving an interview with the object behind him. Either he sold it or he has kept it. He's still not told us what. But instantly he was speaking in French. I didn't know French. So I went to my group. We have a group of friends on WhatsApp. And I said, this guy in TEFAF is speaking in French. What is he talking about? And Linda, my good friend from Accra, she came back and said, forget it. It's just this dealer in London. But incidentally, she said, I'm going to TEFAF next month. I said, as usual, whenever you see an auction, you see an Indian object, you please send me. As luck could have it, in January of this year, a friend of mine who's currently the principal economic advisor to Prime Minister Modi was talking about my work to a friend, and the old man had come to him for some other favor, and he said, can Vijay solve this theft? And it was a theft from 1961. In 1961, the Nalanda Museum was hit by 2 thefts. And Nalanda is, as you know, the most sacred Buddhist site. And these were excavated bronzes from the Nalanda Buddhist site. And a total of 16 bronzes were stolen. Sadly, there were no photographs available. And in fact, this was a paper presented by Italy and India in a UN conference in 1976 when they mentioned that one of the bronzes was with the LACMA. But the LACMA refused because they did not have any conclusive proof. So from 1976, India has been battling this. As luck could have it, my friend, my old man, retired officer, you know, in India, when you make a mistake, whether you have committed it or not, you get a black mark, and he had missed one promotion because of this theft. And he had kept all the paperwork with him for 57 years. So he supplied us these photographs from his files. And you know, in true filmy style, I put it up on my wall for one day before my wife throws it off. I commit them to memory. And he gave us a physical description, and we did find the original photo when it was still in the museum in LACMA. It's a perfect match. Indian government has started working with the LACMA. It should have ended there. But casual exchanges on WhatsApp. Linda tells me I'm going to TEFAF in March. I said, do you have a list of dealers? I said, yes, I have a whole list. I gave her a list, and she said, can you mark which ones you want me to track? And then I gave her a list. On the list, you have all the major dealers. As luck could have it, she said, hey, there's one more guy who's selling Himalayan art who's not on your list. I said, no harm, just send me the photograph. So she sent me on WhatsApp, and mind the time difference, I was sitting in Singapore at 1 o'clock in the night, I'm getting these photographs, and there is this vague image. And I'm like, I know this guy. And you know, the robbers were so smart. They actually broke a leaf from the left and they've stuck it to the right to make it look like a different one. So this was the original image, and you can see the leaf on the right side, and they'd actually physically altered with the object to make it look different. But then, you know how Indian law enforcement is. It was a live auction, we had to stop it. So I called up Linda and said, Linda, I have a match, but it'll take me some time to convince the Indian government because there's this slight difference. So we went to the Dutch police, and Martin, who's a good friend, a big guy, he's about 2 feet, but same width, he goes in and says, "This is stolen, you can't sell it here, take it off display," and just walks off. No notice, nothing. He said, "This is the max I can do, at least I won't get it sold here." So the dealer said, "No, but it's on consignment to me, I'm taking it back to London." I said, "Good." The Met police were informed. So we made all the matches as usual. We gave them all, so there were critical marks in it. Finally, I got the ASI to move, thankfully, and they sent out a letter to the Met Police. But despite this, the buyers disputed, the owners disputed. They said, "We have 10 places where it doesn't match." So ICOM expert was invited, and ICOM expert concurred with our match. And in August 15th, in a ceremony, this small Buddha returned back. It was given back to India. So I'm going to end there. Thanks for your time, to say that there is hope. The youngsters are using social media for good purposes. Please